Time for world politics. One thing that is being discussed is the vice presidential race. It is now lined up, just like the presidential race is lined up, as we have four candidates. As Tim Walz, the Minnesota governor, was recently tabbed by Kamala Harris to be the nominee for the Democrats. And apparently, one of the things that is going on is J.D. Vance has laid out stipulations before agreeing to debate Tim Walz. So now that both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have chosen their running mates for the 2024 presidential election, one of the questions that remains is, will there be any debates? And while a potential presidential debate is still up in the air, with Trump and Harris failing to come to an agreement, a vice presidential debate does appear somewhat more likely at the moment. So Republican Vice President nominee J.D. Vance said Tuesday at a campaign event that he will debate Harris running mate Tim Walz, but not until something else happens first. I absolutely want to debate Tim Walz, Vance said, but I want to debate him after he's actually officially the nominee. Vance went on to say that he called Walz to congratulate him on being named Harris's VP pick, but speculated that the top of the Democratic ticket could still be changed. Would it shock me if the Democrats pulled another switcheroo? No, it wouldn't, Vance said. So look, we're going to wait until they actually nominate Kamala Harris and Tim Walz before we do any debates. And on Monday night, the Democratic National Party announced that 99% of the pledge and automatic delegates voted for Harris to be the Democratic nominee for president. The vote still needs to be certified before Harris or Walz will be the official 2024 presidential ticket. And before moving to the top of the ticket, Harris had agreed to a VP debate on August 13th, but Vance had not confirmed his appearance. So it remains to be seen when and if a VP debate will take place. It'll be interesting to see what folks have to say about that. I know Kim Calhoun has been talking to David Walker, I believe it is, who has been involved in a debate, but this will be the third party candidates and all along those lines. So I imagine that'll be folks like the Green Party and maybe the Libertarians and a number of others. And I think Kim told me that that debate will be taking place on the 18th of September, not the 18th of October and everything. And I guess they're doing prep work and all along those lines. So I'm glad that you're here, Kim. I've also got Rick Rosner as well as Sasha Starr and a number of other folks as well. There were a couple of things that I wanted to get to on world politics, including the politics of the Olympics. I was watching the Olympics earlier today and everything, and I saw that the U.S. Women's football team, or what a lot of people here call soccer, but it's football around the rest of the world and everything, won their match against Germany. And I did not see who won the Brazilian match, even though I think Brazil was up on Spain, because that will be who will take the U.S. will take on in women's soccer. And right now, the U.S. is killing Brazil in basketball. And I've been watching a couple of the other sporting events as well. But when it comes to politics, one of the things that I noticed is that, and I may find the text about it, is that there were some death threats for the person that organized the Olympic celebration, and there's been a whole lot of debate about whether it was an affront to the Last Supper or not an affront to the Last Supper. In reading the quotes from the gentleman who has now received these death threats, it seems like he was trying to have a celebration about Greek culture and a number of other things, but I'll try to find the quote about what he exactly said. But it does seem like there are some threats, including some threats coming from the Muslim community and all in that space. And I also did see that there was a crisis in the world that involves Saharan Africa, or all along those lines, or maybe that's considered sub-Saharan Africa, but it involves Sudan, Chad, and some other parts of the world that the UN has been talking about as well. But I might get to both of those topics with you fine folks in a minute and everything. But I guess the first question is there going to be a debate? Should there be a debate between these vice presidents? And when will the debate take place, and all along those lines? So any takes on this, Rick?
Yeah, there will be. I just wanted to bring up what Walz has been being attacked for, showing that he's pretty hard to attack. They are attacking him for stolen valor, which is for claiming a rank that he didn't have, which is garbage, easily debunked. He was command sergeant major, which is like a super high rank, non-commissioned officer rank, for his last few years in the National Guard. He was 24 years in the National Guard. And while you're working on that rank, you are that rank.
Right.
But if you leave before completing 4 or 5 years, major reverts back to the previous rank upon retirement. So that accusation is just ridiculous. They're calling him Tampon Tim because he signed a bill that in all public schools, menstrual products should be available for students from grades 4 through 12. He also signed a bill that provides free meals for public school students in Minnesota. So, I mean, to attack him on that stuff is just, I don't know, kind of a losing thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think they attacked him more on the fact that, he put tampons in boys' bathrooms and stuff like that. So I think their attack on him is that they think he's too far left. I mean, they're going to find something wrong with anyone. I don't care who it is. You can put God on that plate and they're going to find something wrong with them. And it's just the way things are nowadays. Nothing is about what is right with someone. Everything is all about what is wrong. And somebody had even mentioned that in the campaign process, that nothing being said right now is about policies, what's going on, what's happening, how we're going to fix things. Everything is just fight. I mean, like Trump, I don't want to do the debate when it's scheduled. We'll do it on my time, on my playground, on my hill. I mean, come on. Really? I mean, why can't we just get along, get this stupid campaign finished? I wish all of them would just get erased.
But Kim, isn't part of it, Kim, isn't part of it just the way that the candidates have become in terms of wanting things done on their terms? And all along those lines, I had the pleasure, because I just found out that Cassie Lemons, I believe that's the gentleman's name, is the head of the NABJ. And I did talk to a friend of mine that went to that event. He actually came there the day after the whole turmoil with Trump appearing and everything there in Chicago. And he told me that while Trump was arguing about the microphones and everything else, what really happened and what he was told happened, and all along those lines, because they actually got some pushback at that particular organization for the way that they handled it, even for people within the organization and everything, was that apparently Trump was upset that the reporters, because it was a group of reporters, they were black reporters at that, but they wanted to fact check him live and in person during the debate. And apparently that is what held the debate up for those many minutes, is the fact that they actually wanted to fact check him live and all in that space. So according to my friend Brett Chambers, who's been a member of that organization for a number of years, and that was the true cause of the slowdown and all along.
What's fact checking a person for? What were they fact checking? I'm curious. What do they fact check? I'm curious.
We're going to fact check everything he said. Everything that he said would be part of the debate. So everything that Trump said during that conversation with those 3 reporters would be fact checked live. So they wanted to do fact checking live, which I know has become a thing that has been going on regularly in this time and everything. So literally, if he said,
I heard the same thing, and because in the debate with Biden, Trump, he made no statement that didn't have mistruths in it.
Right. He does that all the time.
You were talking about why can't we have talk about the issues. I blame the social media space. My dad was a small businessman, and in the 60s, he might talk to 150 people face to face, while in the course of a day of business, and that's how you exchanged ideas. Now, you just throw out bullshit all the time. If it works, fine. If it doesn't work, you can send out hundreds of messages, and you can receive thousands of messages over social media in a day. And that makes it easy to experiment with all flavors of bullshit. And the shorter the message, the punchier the message, the better. And it doesn't matter if it's particularly accurate or deep or whatever. In Saj's neck of the woods, the markets lost 3% yesterday. Today they recovered 1%. So it's not the end of the world.
No, it's
not. But I would like to mention something, wherever it sticks, and talking about Trump's coming up with some names, sometimes funny, sometimes whatever there might be. For example, remember when there was election with him and Hillary Clinton? He came up with the formula "crooked Hillary," and it sticks. And what Hillary is about to do? To go to her doctor and say, "Please give me the document which says that I'm not crooked." The doctor says, "I don't have such document." So what can she say? What would she say really in her defense? Nothing, and she lost the election. Now here, the walls, and I'm pretty sure that the actual reason why he was elected, indeed, it was difficult to attack him. He's not Jewish, he's not black, he's not Indian, he's not anything. It's very hard to mount an attack, and he is a former military commander. And but most importantly, he came up with the Trump is weird. JD is
weird.
It's weird. Both of them are weird. And he said that on to Sunday, a week ago on CNN.
Yep.
So he captured all of it. And now almost anything, whatever Democrats will start, Trump is weird, DJ Vance is weird, and both of them are weird. And that's it. They don't need to work very hard to win the election. That's all what it does.
It's just weird.
And also something else.
Along the same lines, one of the things in talking after your Ukrainian show and everything, sometimes
I like that though.
I get a chance to talk to Jonathan Lockwood and all along those lines, and I know he's very conservative. He's part of the Heritage Foundation, but one of the things that he said is he feels that it's going to be two opposite sides of the political spectrum, because he said that Tim Walz is equally as liberal as Kamala, and he finds it's a very ultra liberal ticket and everything, whereas he thinks that the Trump ticket is more conservative and more to his liking. So I just wondered, do we think that the ideology is going to be part of the debate? Because apparently, according to what Jonathan was saying, that a lot of the Republicans are feeling that the Walz and Harris ticket is super liberal, and whether that is the case or not, it'll be interesting to see. But that is
they're going to paint him with that. But I just saw a graph of his voting record. He was 6 years in Congress, and he's to the right of most Democrats. He's very close to the center as you can be. Nobody's in the center anymore, really, because they're divided into parties. But he's pretty dang close.
So it'll be interesting.
I don't think that this is number one issue. I think a lot of people, in my opinion, they are not really studying the issues and who is for which issues and how it could affect them or so on. They are, how you say it, low information waters. They cannot process information and use it one way or another. They like, crooked Hillary. I'm not going to vote for crooked Hillary. J.D. Vance weird, and Trump also is weird. I'm not going to vote for weird people. That's not all. This level. Now you have to go to higher level, to more people who have more information and need information to reach them. But they are minority. Majority people need crooked Hillary, weird Trump, and J.D. Vance, or something simpler or something like that. That's my opinion.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and that's a solid opinion and everything. One of the things that I mentioned, and I'm still looking for that article that I alluded to, but I did want to know what is our thoughts, because it is the World Politics Show, about how politics is seeping into the sports world as well. I know that Simone Biles and I think Jordan honored, I believe it was the Brazilian winner, because she had gone through a lot of suffering, and they actually bowed down to her after they had been defeated by her and finished in silver and bronze medals and everything. And I'm sure some people may have thought that that was not necessary, but they were honoring an athlete that had been through some turmoils. And then on the opposite side of that, and I'm sure that both you and definitely Rick will be interested in this, as will anybody that cares about human rights and human life. But the Israeli Olympic team said some of their athletes have received threats as they participate in Paris amid those tensions over the Palestinian deaths during the war in Gaza and the threat of that wider regional conflict in the Middle East. So Yael Ered, the president of the Israeli National Olympic Committee, told the Associated Press earlier today that team members had received centralized threats meant to generate psychological terror in athletes without giving further details. So last week, Paris prosecutors opened an investigation into emailed death threats to Israeli athletes, and the National Cybercrime Agency is looking into the leaks of some Israeli athletes' personal data online, which has since been taken down. So I know there have been a lot of inquiries, and there have even been some people that are saying that maybe Paris is being overly intense in the way they're handling things, and that there might even be some of what some people consider to be profiling going on, whether that's profiling against Muslim communities or other communities as well. So I'm just wondering, because I do remember that tragedy of Munich. I was a teenager at the time in 76 and everything along those lines. But
72. But yeah, but I mean, so no degree of intensity is not, I mean, it's any degree is justified, given that almost the entire Israeli Olympic team was slaughtered in the 1972 Munich Olympics. So
But do you remember what's happened to all these terrorists who slain our Israeli athletes? Have you seen at least
the movie Munich?
But several years before Munich, there was a very little known movie, Sword of Gideon. And that movie, in my opinion, is even stronger and much better crafted than Munich. I'm serious about that. But the result is the same. No one remained alive. All of these perpetrators, all of them were killed one by one by one. Even if it took several years, it doesn't matter. Nobody remained alive. So maybe that should be studied by aspiring terrorists today.
Well, regardless of what you think of Israel, if you like spy movies, there are a bunch of spy movies and TV series about Israel and the Mossad, which is one of the world's greatest spy agencies, especially for a little teeny country. So you got Sword of Gideon, you've got Munich, you've got TV shows. They're very good at spycraft.
Yeah, but in those same lines, and it's what I mentioned earlier, and I did find what I was looking for. Prosecutors have opened an investigation into death threats against the organizers of the Paris Olympic opening ceremony. And on Saturday, artistic director Thomas Joly, ceremonies director Thierry Rebel, and Alexandria Billard of events agency UB Ben filed a complaint for death threats there as well. So definitely it looks like last month there was even some folks that were involved in that whole organization of the event and everything. So French DJ Barbara Butch, who performed in the opening ceremony's drag queen sequence, lodged a complaint after receiving abuse online, and that was last month, even before this whole celebration took place. And Mr. Joly, because one of the things I've always believed is that if you want to know whether somebody is actually putting a particular image out there or has a particular agenda, ask the people themselves and all in that space, because there's been speculation as to whether it was the Last Supper or wasn't the Last Supper, and all in that space. And I even remember Andre Serrano when he did that piece called Piss Christ, and there was no doubt that he was trying to take a swipe at Christianity, but I don't think that was the case in this case. But Ms. Joly has said that he was not inspired by the famous Leonardo da Vinci painting showing Jesus Christ and his apostle. Instead, he said the sequence titled Festivity was inspired by Greek mythology and was intended to be a celebration of diversity, adding that his intention was not to be subversive, not to mock or to shock. So it sounds like that was not his intention, even though some people have been shocked by it and all along those lines. So I just wondering y'all's take on this kind of hate speech that's going on and all along those lines. Because like I said, I was always curious as to what the intention of the artist was, because I'm actually a big fan of art as a activism tool, or what they call art activism and everything like that.
So the outrage merchants need to fill 24 hours a day of messaging. And so they're always looking for something to be pissed off about. Now, yeah, you could, I mean, that there were a lot of similarities between that drag queen thing and the Last Supper. And that guy you were just talking about apologized. And, you know, maybe some of those similarities were intentional. But, you know, how much outrage do regular people feel? People have been spoofing the Last Supper, you know, for 1,000 years. They're, you know, artists have painted it thousands of times. Not Sesame Street, the Muppets did a Muppet Last Supper. You know, they weren't trying to make fun of Jesus. They were just showing a different version of it.
But it even seems like it's getting into the religious conversation, because like I said, I do have friends, not just Sasha, but even my dad's longtime girlfriend that is of Jewish background, and you, Rick, and others as well that are from the Jewish community. I also have some friends that are of the Islamic faith, both the American Islam as well as a few that are from the Islamic countries and all along those lines. But apparently French prosecutors who opened the investigation after Mr. Jolly, who is openly gay, complained of death threats and cyberbullying, and some of the emails received by Mr. Jolly and the head of a production company quoted a verse from the Quran stating that Allah's punishment will befall the organizers in St. Denis, one of the Olympic sites, according to a newspaper out of Paris. So it does look like some of these threats are coming from different sources and not just Christian sources, in terms of threats against folks that were offended for whatever reason that they were offended and everything. So I just wondered your take on that, because the French were very proud of the ceremony, is what the French president Emmanuel Macron said, even though he was outraged and said he was outraged by the cyberbullying directed at Jolly, adding that nothing justifies threatening an artist. The French were very proud of this ceremony. He said France showed appropriate boldness with their artistic freedom and all along those lines. So that's what the French president said. So what is your take on this? All three.
Me, Mark, all this story and 75 cents will buy you a cup of coffee. That's my opinion.
There you go.
Not in Los Angeles. You need like $3.75 to get even a small cup.
Yeah, in Starbucks even more. Yeah,
$6. I was just going to say $6 for Starbucks.
Yeah, like, all right.
it's
So,
only tiny cup of coffee. But
so
Hey, be careful how you.
sick the police on the suspects, and then move on. We've got
I
new
mean,
outrages to digest every day.
you know, too, I mean, they can't, it's just so much going on today. They can't decipher. It's like, you know, I had a video of somebody trying to break into my son's house,
Right.
but it's attempted, right? They didn't get in. So it doesn't mean that they're not going to come back and try again and again. It's just, you know, I think there's just a lot going on today, and people just don't take things as serious as they should, of the right things. But I just think what we need to do is get back on track. I want to start hearing more policies from our politicians. I would wish we could make the questions and send them in, or the people could send in questions of what we really want to ask them, because having a bunch of journalists ask those questions just don't get it for me. You know, they're not asking the questions I want to know. And you know, it's just
journalists, they're trying to get some mileage, political mileage,
Right.
out of their questions. So they want to try to protect that whoever they're interviewing, and make questions which are easy to answer or even beneficial for that particular person they're interviewing. So this is obviously really not.
So you have two things going on. One is access. That if your show is tough on politicians, then a lot of politicians won't come on. Meet the Press, Face the Nation, those shows are 50 years old. They've been doing this forever. And every Sunday I see on Twitter, people are like, F Face the Nation, Meet the Press, they didn't press anybody on, when they lied. And so if you ask tough questions, you don't get invited back. And so that's one thing. The other thing is rage viewing, where you put jerks on your show who spew BS. People watch just to get mad. That it's very compelling stuff.
You got a lot of that.
Go to Facebook. People get mad on Facebook enough as it is. There's enough spewing.
They get mad on Facebook all the time. I will tell you, Kim, that just on a Women of Prayer, because sometimes this happens, but two things. One, we have a media person confirmed for the 19th of August, who has actually written a lot of books, and I got him through one of our people, and he actually talks about media bias. So he'll be on World Edition, not this coming Monday, but next Monday, and he actually talked about what we're talking about right now, which is kind of this media bias, and he's written a book about it, and he's got some notice and everything. But just on a Women of Prayer, I doubt that they will return me my letter and everything. But when I found that Tim Walz was going to be the candidate, I was like, well, what the heck, we're Pod TV. I'm going to send him a letter. So I sent him a letter, and maybe I'll get shocked and he'll actually write back, and we'll get the vice president on. But it doesn't hurt to at least throw ourselves into the mix of somebody that he may come and address and everything. I saw your hand, Rick, but before I get to that and everything, one of the questions I had, because it's kind of what I alluded to earlier, but the World Food Program has mentioned that in North Darfur, speaking of things that don't get covered and that politicians probably need to pay attention to, as of last Thursday, famine was confirmed in North Darfur in Sudan, and nearly 700,000 people faced a catastrophic hunger condition, and many have already died from hunger, and we haven't heard many people talking about that. So if famine confirmation means people are already dying of hunger, this is the first time famine has been confirmed in Sudan. 1 in every 2 Sudanese struggles to find enough food to eat every day, and roughly 54% of the country's population requires urgent humanitarian assistance, including food, agriculture, and nutrition support. So this is definitely something that apparently some of the world organizations are concerned about and everything like that. They said famine is human-made. Almost 15 months of brutal war there in that part of the world have destroyed Sudan's economy and forced millions of people from their homes. The conflict has already created the world's largest hunger crisis, spanning Sudan, South Sudan, and Chad. So definitely they say the United Nations World Food Program is responding, and in June 1.7 million people received food and cash assistance in Sudan, and now the UN World Food Program is rolling it's scaling up its emergency response as quick as possible to save more lives. So what is our thoughts when we're hearing about these issues, like the issues of world hunger and all along those lines? And I saw that Nick's with us as well, but that's something that apparently I know that is an issue even here in the U.S. I know that, Rick, you talked about the amount of homeless that are there in California. So it's not just a African issue, it's an issue around the world and everything. And I don't know that any of our politicians are paying enough attention to it. So any takes on this notion, particularly when we apparently have a famine crisis, and it's not the first one. You can watch some of the groups.
So the thing that jumps out at me is that the famine is at the camps for war displaced people in the Darfur region in Sudan. So it's people who have been, pushed out of their homes by war. And to me, this suggests we're going to see a lot more of this in the decades to come, because climate change is going to be pushing people around and making people fight for land. I would guess that, a low estimate for the number of people who will be displaced by climate change by, say, 2045 would be 1/3 billion, and a high estimate would be double that. And so, yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, not good at all. Nick, I see you've joined us. What's your take on a number of things we've been talking about, the Democratic race, the politics of the Olympics, and now this famine issue? But I see you've joined us, and just wanted to hear your comments on some of these things. You're about to ready to go and escape the U.S. media.
Famine issue. I mean, the thing is, that stuff goes on all the time. But, in the United States, we have our own problems, which we're not even solving. And neither politicians addressing it. They don't give a rat's rear about the homeless. I haven't seen one of them, Democrats or Republicans, saying, we're going to create housing for everybody. I haven't seen one of them do that. It's like they don't give a rat's rear. They do make a lot of ad hominem attacks against each other. It's all personality. Oh, you're a Democrat. Oh, you're a Republican. But they don't address the issues, which is big. Yeah, right.
So before the UN, there was the League of Nations that was formed after World War I, and it fell apart because they didn't have the power to do anything. And similarly, the UN, which was formed after World War II, is toothless. If we're going to have worldwide disruption due to climate change, like it would be, well, you've got to so the UN being toothless just sends people to places, and they can't do a lot. They can do a little bit of good and like route some food and resources in, but they can't. They're mostly standing by while bad shit happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically they're like a makeup organization. They're a face organization, but the realities of what's going on in the world is not being addressed by media. Neither party. As a matter of fact, both parties really suck. And so the thing is, I don't know what you can do about it. You have one, they want to spend, one's a party of corporate welfare. Those are the Democrats. The other one is a party of giving everything to the 1%. Those are the Republicans. That's what you got. And none of them give a rat's rear about the American public, but, we're supposed to give to them. Please. And then all they do is spend time with personal attacks. You're this, you're that, but no one spends time on the issues. It was a big issue that everybody's ignoring. 1% do own 54% of all the investable assets in the United States. 1% does. And if you're in top 1%, you're doing good. Top 10% own 93%. And those are the people I work with. Those are people I do business. I think that they're out there because that's the reason I can move to Europe. But I can tell you, the other 90% have nothing, and the bottom 50% have 1%. I mean, so you have really the United States is basically a third world country that just hasn't admitted it yet.
Nick, explain to me when you're saying that over and over 3 times a day. What are you expecting to happen? That people will get, oh my God, this is so unfair. We have to do something about it. Let's write a letter. Let's do this or that.
They have no clue what to do because they're so financial.
Then why are you repeating that? Are you making any mileage out of it?
Because the first thing you do to solve a problem is identify a problem.
Nobody cares about this problem. It's been for thousands of years, and it will be for another 5,000 years. So
part of the reason I have to leave meetings in the middle of it is I'm doing $30.5 million to $30 million transactions every hour with people that are making $1.5 million to $30 million a year. Seriously, okay? So I can't be on this thing. And then when I get on this thing, I find a bunch of people that $1.5 million to $30 million, they're not going to achieve that in their entire lifetime. And
what's your message? Whatever happens now is unfair. We all know that. Any idiot knows that. Why are you repeating the same thing? I'll give you a better slogan. It's better to be healthy and wealthy than poor and sick. Keep that. That gives you more mileage. Because people say, bravo,
they need
great.
To look at
What you're saying, you get any
them economically. Sasha, they need to see which party is going to help them economically.
Nobody, no party, nobody, anybody. Those people who are born sick and poor will remain sick and poor. Those people who are healthy and wealthy will remain healthy and wealthy. And nothing what you are going to say or I'm going to say or anybody else here is going to say will not change it. So why are you repeating the same thing? It's the same thing to say, oh, look at the sun. It's a beautiful day. So what?
You do.
So what? Why you keep repeating this over and over and over? I think you are much smarter than that. You're trying to.
Hold on a second, both of you. Hold on. What's happening here is that. Hold on.
I don't get it.
The policies of the government is to keep it that way.
I think one of what's going on here is that
Nothing to do with
it's part of what goes on in the network, whether we agree with it or not, is that there are people that educate in one way. They present the facts, and then people can either do what they want to with the facts or not do what they want with the facts. And then there are a couple of other shows that are on the network that are more activist based, and they are trying to get people to do one thing or another. I think that I've heard you say, Sasha, a couple of times, even on your own show, Modern Investment, that you can that you're not really, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the things you said is that you're not really trying to like I know Milan says he can educate a 10-year-old to do the S&P 500 and to make money that way and everything. Whereas I've heard you say a couple of times that you're not in the business of teaching people about financial. You might give them how you've done it, but you're not trying to teach them per se. If I'm correct,
you're absolutely correct. I'm not a teacher. Nobody asked me to teach anybody. Nobody is paying me anything to teach anybody. So obviously, I relieve myself of any educational aspiration as to teach 10 years old how to trade S&P 500. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people who would like to do that. Let them do it. Why not?
And that's
there are two trends to talk about. One, Nick has identified that you can't. It's going to be tough to get better fair or more even income distribution because rich people own politics in the U.S.
and they own the media.
But the necessities of life and even a lot of the nice things in life continue to get cheaper. So it's better to be poor now than at the best time to be poor is always right now compared to the past. So I just looked it up. You can get a 63-inch TV from China, shipping included, for $127 from Temu. And so, I mean, food gets cheaper. Food as a percentage of income is a quarter of what it was 100 years ago. Same for clothing. So,
what about housing?
Rick, I think that most of Americans can buy 2 TVs, not just one, but 2.
Right now, housing is a problem. In the future, I think it might be less of a problem as construction becomes more automated.
Okay, but let's get real. Nobody wants to talk about housing and how to solve those particular problems, even though that is extremely important and probably more important than the thing that I'm going to discuss, which everybody wants to discuss right now, and that deals with the Olympics, and specifically, because this is so exciting, the opening of the Olympics, where we had Leonardo da Vinci last summer, baby. Remember?
Before you came on, we already talked about it.
We already talked about that.
We'll get our Irish going. Remember
we already talked about that and everything. And Thomas Jolie has said that is not what it was.
That's what they say. That's what they say. But the thing is, that's not what they said.
But I did have a question. Hold on a second.
Look at that.
Well, hold on a second. I have a question.
No, Mark, you might know that was a drag queen message sent by.
Can I ask a question?
France, Sacre Bleu, to the world. That was.
I would like to know what kind of opening the U.S. is going to do. Are we all going to have to get down on our knees and pray and say the 10 Commandments?
I think that would be adequate. I think what we should do is have a group of Confederate soldiers stand up and parade around.
There you go.
I can tell you. I can give you a preview of the 2028 opening ceremonies because they've already recorded. There's a handoff. They're at the closing ceremonies. They hand off the torch or something to the next city, and I've read that it involves Tom Cruise skydiving into the Hollywood sign. That's for real. I'm not making that up. So it's going to be in Los Angeles. It's going to be pretty glitzy. It probably won't be sacrilegious.
I'll be so happy that I'll be in France.
I would like to suggest something. Number one, why not to recreate the Last Supper? All you need is to serve good kosher food at affordable prices, and that will do the trick. Number two, I think one of the reasons that Kamala Harris didn't appoint Shapiro as a vice president was that I already heard the talk that him and her husband, who happened to be Jewish, that they would allocate a certain portion of the White House for synagogue. And most likely it would be Oval Office. So there will be a small synagogue, so they have provided their prayers and everything else without leaving White House with the all kind of people around them, secret agents and all that stuff. So they could do right in house. So this is something what unfortunately that didn't happen. Now the Buttigieg also couldn't be appointed simply because of one of his statements when he was invited to an interview. So he said, okay, I have to ask my husband. And that was a little bit too much to swallow. And also the designation of his husband would be the second husband, because first husband is Kamala Harris' husband, so he would be his first husband, and then Buttigieg's husband would be a second husband. That would provide some inconvenience for some of the people, to say the least. So at least I think she did a fantastic choice. The man who doesn't really have to go to find out what's the right thing to answer or say, he does it instantly, right on the spot. He's very quick on his feet. He immediately came up with the weird J.D. Vance and weird Trump, and both of them are weird. And that's all what Democrats need to win the election. They don't need to explain their policies, what they're going to do differently or so on. He is weird. That guy is weird. Both of them are weird. Then the story. Bravo. See you in 4 years. That's all.
I did read through his CV. He is Mr. Average. In other words, maybe a little bit above average and everything. And that's about it.
You don't need to drive your message. You don't need to be much above average. You need to be average to connect to average people, because the voters are average people. So you have to have.
Sasha, he is definitely no rocket scientist. I'll tell you that right now.
You don't need rocket scientists. You don't need.
He is just Mr. Average Joe.
Okay,
the last and only the last.
And Trump, they are rocket scientists. So
no, Trump is below average Joe.
And J.D. Vance is what?
No, J.D. Vance.
Venture capitalist.
J.D. Vance hopes to be Joe someday. But go on, Rick.
He is much worse than Trump, because Trump, we all know that he is convicted criminal. J.D. Vance hasn't been convicted.
He hasn't been convicted yet.
But it will take some time. He will be convicted as well.
So the last and only genius who was a VP was Teddy Roosevelt.
The last one. The one before was John Quincy Adams.
Okay, so I don't know that far back.
Yeah,
Al Gore was pretty smart too, but that just made him trip over his own self. And
he tripped over himself, and he also, got credited with doing something that most people noted that was a political tactic and everything, because a lot of the Republicans teased him because he was involved in technology. So there was this whole notion of whether Al Gore invented the internet, which we know.
Like he was constantly, like, he was not good at giving sound bites that wouldn't get him in trouble. I'm sure what he meant when he said that he created the internet was that he worked on the legislation that made the internet possible. Yeah. He also said there was a famous, huge movie called Love Story 50 years ago about students at Harvard falling in love. And Al Gore said he was the Love Story. He was the guy. It was based on him. And but he was not lying. But the guy, Eric Siegel, who wrote it, said that the main character was a composite of 4 people, including Al Gore. But Al Gore would say this stuff. The press didn't like him very much, and they would, take what he, not the smartest things he said, and then run with it and make him look like an a-hole.
No, along those same lines and everything, Kim, one of the things I was curious about, because you said you've been talking to David Walker and everything along those lines, is Is there any possibility, because you mentioned this notion of the citizens being able to ask the questions, and I think that used to be the case way back when and everything like that, but is there any possibility that even with this debate that David is hosting along with some other people, that a third party candidate, whether it's the Green Party, whether it's the Libertarians, whether it's a number of other ones, I don't even know all the ones that he's going to have in the debate, will they be able to crack through? Because right now it is the notion of the elite, and even the kind of what Nick was talking about, there's a lot of consumerism, because I think just about everybody has a TV in just about every room, and I don't know that you need a TV in every room and everything along those lines. But I just wanted your take on this notion of the debate, the third party debate, and whether it will have any traction at all, because you've been talking to David for the last several days and everything. So what's your take on this debate?
Well, I think one, he won't share any of the secrets with me of what they're doing. I think he's just got my curiosity up. I'm real curious as to what the intent of this debate is all about. I think that there's still some hope that they can run a third party, which I think would be great. I've heard enough people in the last 3 days say if a third party ran, they would 100% vote for them. And this actually came from Trump people. I couldn't believe it. They're like so sick of everything. A third party would be better than their extreme right. So, but what I think would be nice is if we could have where, people could submit their questions. But I think that it does need to be kind of filtered through a little bit, because Nick and I, we see some of the comments and questions that come in and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe somebody would say that. I think it needs to be slightly controlled with questions that I guess that they can manage and see how people are really going to do the policies. But I agree with you. I think the citizens should have a right to put in their thoughts and questions. Yes, Sasha?
You see, this dilemma is typically Canadian-born dilemma. It's not the U.S. U.S. is very typical two-party system, and if you don't like either of them, just go to Spain or somewhere else. By the way, Spain, I think, lost 4-1 today, women soccer.
Oh.
Yeah, that's
4-1 to Brazil. Now, in Canada, we have three parties. One is Progressive Conservatives, which is similar to Republican Party, let's say, in US. Another one is Liberal Party of Canada, which is similar to Democrats. But we have a third party, official third party, NDP. It's a New Democratic Party. This party has always participating in debates without having any chance, even mathematical whatsoever, to win a majority or even form the government or anything. So on the last debate which I saw, I'm not watching this debate now for many years, but the last one I saw when Stephen Harper was still a prime minister, which is he's a fabulous guy. And when this clever person from NDP opened his mouth and talked for about 3.5 minutes, and Harper told him, I envy you. You have no chances to form the government or become anybody. So you can say anything what you want whatsoever. There is no problem for you. You have nothing to lose and you have nothing to gain. So then the wisdom of that is, what is in the United States third party candidate who has no chances, even less chances than NDP in Canada to win? Why should he share a stage with two people who have real chances to win? Why?
So Kennedy is currently polling at 5 to 6%, and he's been declining. A couple of months ago, he was up at 9 and 10%, but then these stories, he dumped a dead bear in Central Park as a prank 10 years ago, when he was 60 years old. So it's not like he was a kid. So no, all he can, and plus he's like, he sounds like a lunatic, so he's going to pull more votes from the other lunatic, Trump. So, I mean...
Well, not your third-party candidate.
I'd like to just mention what we've discussed on the shows for the last several months. American people, well more than 70%, they got tired of too old farts, sorry to say so, and they just hated and they didn't want that to happen. So finally one is gone, only one left. So that situation is much better. So now you have much younger, much better educated, much more effective women, and the old, you know what. So the situation corrected itself. There is no more green choice of these two old idiots. So who needs this third party candidate? To do what? To give them water or coffee? To do what there? I mean, there is no purpose of him being on stage. Full stop, period.
Well,
I agree with you, but
just really quickly, just to let you know, just really quickly and everything, Nick, we have two amazing guests that will be coming on the show. One next Monday that I just alluded to and everything, but Ketka was actually involved with the whole interview around Nicole Simpson and Scientology and everything, and even the Desperate Housewives. So he'll be able to tell us as a journalist what his experience was, and he'll be joining World Edition next Monday. And then on gentleman to go, the Manchurian journalist Dan Lusiter will be joining us, and he has definitely been taking a swipe at the nature of journalism and all along those lines. I want to come back to the Olympics. So I had a quick question, and I'm glad because it looks like the U.S. will be playing Brazil in soccer, and I think the U.S. might be playing Brazil in actually they beat Brazil in volleyball and everything, and now they'll be playing somebody else. I think they're playing Poland for the next match and everything like that, and that'll be a rematch in the women's volleyball. But one thing that I'm seeing when I'm watching the Olympics, and it's a good thing, but I sometimes wonder if we're doing enough of this in the U.S. because every country, when they come onto the games, they have their national anthem playing. So like literally they had the U.S. playing and Germany, that soccer match that I watched but pretty much the entirety of it and everything. It was a very tense and good match, but right at the beginning of the game, they sang the national anthem of the individual countries, and every country is doing that during the Olympics. And I'm just wondering how well, and this is a question for everybody, are we teaching our kids something as basic as the national anthem? Because I'm wondering how many folks don't even know how to sing their national anthem, whereas in other countries, it's almost like a prerequisite and they know it very well and everything. So what is y'all's take? Is the U.S. doing a good job of teaching that very basic principle of the national anthem and all in that space?
I hate to bring up Trump again, but Trump doesn't know the words to the national anthem. He's been caught on tape faking it several times. I
went to Catholic schools, and they required us to sing all the songs and do all the patriotic things when we were kids. So it kind of like drilled into us. So I don't see where that's an issue. What I see the thing to be an issue is a couple things that Sasha brought out. Number one is that our political parties are broken. We do not have a good system to vet top quality people into our government. And so we get the worst of the worst, and it's really, really bad. And the thing is, you're right, there's no reason to do a third party. Third party's not going to win. So we're stuck with two parties, and the two parties are incompetent. So we're kind of like in a really bad situation when it comes to generating leadership. Our football teams do a better job generating top people. Our basketball teams do a great job generating top people. Our corporate executives even do a good job, and our politicians do a horrible job. And we do not vet really good people in the political leadership in this country. So you got really, really poor people to choose from. I don't know how it really works in other countries, but it seems to me that they have better leaders like Xi Jinping of China. I mean, shoot, look at what China has done over the last 30 years. China has built an amazing infrastructure over the last 30 years. Even Spain, I don't know who's doing it, but their rails are the second in the world behind China. And the United States doesn't have to do anything. All we've done is gone on a long slide from where we had 50% of the GDP now to 25%. Going down. We're like an elevator slowly going down. We have a debt that climbed to $35 trillion that far exceeds anybody else's debt. and we have nothing to show for it. Absolutely nothing to show for it. And we have leadership and two parties that are incompetent. So we really need a major overhaul of the political scene here so that we actually get decent leaders. You do get decent people and almost every other thing except
Nick,
politics.
it sounds like you want to just strip the Congress and start from scratch and everything. And I do know that one of the Biden proposals is to increase the size of the Supreme Court and maybe even do term limits. So I don't know your thoughts around that and everything.
Well, yeah, I think that doing that is good, but also having what they call specialty courts. I was here in Durham with a group from Vietnam that were studying the American system, the legal system. And one thing they don't have over in Vietnam, which they do in certain jurisdictions here, are specialty courts. We actually have drug courts in certain areas. So you don't go to a criminal court if you're caught with drugs, you go to a drug court. Mental courts. We have business courts. In other words, you have, for specialty areas, you have specialty courts. And the thing is, the Supreme Court handles all issues, and let me tell you, they're not experts in all issues. So what happens, I think Biden is right. We do need to expand the Supreme Court. We need to have specialization within the court system. But the court system really isn't the problem. The problem is our political system. Look at what we have. We have two parties. One, the Republican Party, which absolutely sucks. It's dominated by this MAGA group that don't know anything except throwing around middle school style arguments. And then you have the Democratic Party, and they absolutely suck too. All they can do is figure out how to spend money until we're so far in the hole that we'll never be able to get out. And there is no third party. There is no third option. There are no good people that want to run because it's all run on basically middle school mentality. And then you have a media that supports all the garbage. So unfortunately, and you have a country that is slowly in decline, and all the metrics show it. We're not even in the top 25 in K through 12 education. How could a country as wealthy as us not be in the top 25? We are number one in debt. We are number one in military expense. We are number one in government expense. We're number one in all the bad metrics. And the only last good metric is our GDP is still the highest until China takes us over. But this is what you got. So, Europe is better. There's no question. Go and look at the medal count. Take two European countries like Great Britain and France, combine them, they beat the United States of America. Just do it.
But the two parties aren't equally bad. According to a Pew Research study, from 2022, the Republicans in Congress have drifted 4 times as far to the right as the Democrats have moved left. The Republicans have gotten loonier than the Democrats have.
Yeah, that's argumentative. When I talk to my Republican friends, they think the Democrats are lunatic.
Yeah, but it's about like these little hot button issues like transgender bathrooms that don't really affect many people, and that the Democrats should leave that. They should treat it like a radioactive potato, and but they get sucked into these culture war debates, and when we should be sticking to
well, I mean, number one is the economy. I mean, it's on everybody's shoulders is the economy. In other words, are you getting better economically? And like you pointed out, Rick, well, $14 out of every $15 are in old people's hands. So young people, they're not getting better. And then what I look at, 1% have half and 10% have 90%. And that's just the way it is. So the average American, or 90% of Americans are basically busted. And we have no plan in place to bring our economy up into the 21st century. Instead, all we have is debt. And when I see the debt, it's corporate welfare to big corporations. And the Democrats and the Republicans are equally responsible for that. And the average person, the small business people, they're just getting stepped on. So we need to have a real gut check there. And immigration. We don't have a good immigration policy. I mean, and that's the number 2 item. And neither party has espoused one good thing on the economy, what they're going to do to turn this around. None of them have talked about immigration, what they're going to do to turn it around. Instead, all they do is they point jabs at each other oh look, he married a what do they call it, Indian girl.
We can talk more about this
It's all,
on
it's all race and sex.
Thursday because it's already time to go and everything. So it's time for us to get ready to get
We
out
got
of here. But we'll have more conversation about world politics on Thursday and on World Edition tomorrow. And of course, we have modern investment tomorrow as well. But another good conversation. We'll be out of here and we'll have more on tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye-bye.